Hi, everybody. This is Jason, the host of the Castle of Horror podcast. We're about to start our Carrie retrospective, and we'll be going through various movies that have conquered the Stephen King character. But first, we thought it would be good to go back and listen to our discussion of the original Carrie movie by Brian DePalma. So you're about to hear that episode, but it's worth noting that we recorded this several years ago before we upgraded our sound equipment, so you'll hear some cracks and pops and hisses occasionally, and for that, we're very sorry. So please enjoy this encore episode, Carrie.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. On this podcast, we talk about horror movies, vampire movies, and all-around awesomeness. And this week, we continue our Stephen King retrospective with the first Stephen King adaptation, Brian De Palma's Carrie, starring Sissy Spacek, Piper Laurie, and Amy Irving. Bear in mind that if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the new Alex Van Helsing adventure, Triumph of Death, in hardback, an ebook from HarperCollins. With me are Drew Edwards, the creator of the long-running horror webcomic Halloween Man, which you can find at halloweenman.com. Say hello, Drew.
Howdy.
Howdy. Special guest, Jamie Barr, who is a musician, pinup model, educator, and the lead vocalist and upright bassist for Austin's premier all-female rock and roll rockabilly band, Danger Cakes. Well, you call yourself rock and roll, isn't that right?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Okay, and you can find info on their new album, Dessert First, from Deep Eddy Records at dangercakes.net. Say hello, Danger Cake Jamie Barr.
Hello, Danger Cake Jamie Barr.
And with color commentary and just back from the debate watching party she was at this evening, attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello, Julia.
Life is short, eat dessert first.
Isn't that a wonderful, wonderful title for an album? I love that.
Well, it's an Avi's ice cream motto, so I was very happy to hear that. That was the title. It's like, that's cool. Dessert
right,
first is ice cream?
It is, yeah, it's the Amy's ice cream.
Amy's ice cream says life is short, eat dessert first.
And you live in Austin, so you really need to be checking out Amy's ice cream.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, I've been to Amy's ice cream
we've
many
been
times.
Yes. Okay, Carrie, saith Wikipedia, is the story of a socially outcast teenage girl named Carrie White who discovers she possesses latent psionic, or I would say telekinetic power, which seems to flare up when she becomes angry or otherwise distressed. Carrie's powers become apparent after her humiliation by her peers, her teachers, and her abusive mother, eventually resulting in terrible tragedy. And we are going to get into this movie. This is a fantastic movie. The great thing about doing the Stephen King retrospective is that we are covering really some of the coolest movies in horror. Because if we're only picking like 4 or 5 or however many we're going to do, we can stick amongst the really good ones. So let's start with first impressions. And we're going to go girl, boy, girl, boy. So Julia, why don't you take it away, give us your first impression. Keep it short so we can make it all around and then get into the meat of it. First impressions of Carrie.
Well, Carrie suffers by comparison with The Shining from last week, which is like one of the best movies ever made. So I'm trying to lift it out of that comparison because it's my temptation. Because they're both Stephen King movies, or based on Stephen King books, I should say. And Carrie, it's not like a horror movie. It's got a couple of horror scenes, but really it's almost more of a psychological thriller. I mean, the kind of stuff that it's exploring these relationships with these really screwed up people, and then occasionally there's something supernatural that stems from Carrie's abilities that you just referred to, and then of course there's the climactic final scene, which is just awful. But I mean, as far as like gruesome, not as far as badly done. It's very well done. But there's some great things. I like some of the direction, some of the interesting camera work. The cheesy music, I know there's a purpose for it, and it was 70s, but that music just killed me. I was like, this music is horrible, and the fashions are horrible. But again, can't blame the movie. You have to blame the time. So, so I think it's a good film. It's worth seeing, but it's definitely not The Shining.
All right. Definitely worth seeing. Drew, what are your first impressions of Carrie?
Well, this is a well-acted, in some cases, well-written. There's some interesting visual things about it, and I do think it really captures a lot of the reality, or at least what my reality of the teenage experience is. However, I don't really care for this movie, I have to say. Like, I hadn't seen it since, I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I remember when I first saw it when I was a kid, I thought it was boring. And, sometimes when you go back and watch something with a more mature perspective, you can get past this. But I still have to say, I do think it's kind of dull. I mean, Julia's right. It's not really a supernatural thriller or a horror thriller. In many ways, it's just kind of like almost like a after-school special with a girl who just happens to be telekinetic, and I don't know. Like, it's
I like that
cool
notion that it's
in
teaching you a lesson, and that lesson is, don't be a bully.
Destroy.
I guess.
Don't be a bully, or you will be destroyed, I guess. But there's some cool visual stuff in it. Like, I'm not a big Brian DePalma fan, but there is some cool stuff. Occasionally he does some cool stuff. Julia's also right about the fashion. I mean, man, there are some girly-looking dudes in this movie. I mean, geez, they're like, it's funny. I know a lot of guys, and they think like the '70s. That's like the time of like the manly man, and that's like only really if you were like a super cool black detective in New York City. Really, were you a manly man? Like, I want to hold up like the male leads in this movie. They are girly looking guys.
I really admire William Katt's luscious blonde locks, though. I mean, I gotta say,
he looks like Mighty Thor, like the way Mighty Thor looked before he had a beard. But man, that's some girly hair. And
all right,
I don't know.
all right.
I just don't care. I just don't care for the movie. That's the bottom line.
All right, that's great. I'm glad, because I think some of our best conversations happen when one of us like really can't stand the picture. Okay, speaking of, Jamie, where do you land? I'm really curious.
It'll be a great conversation. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie either. I think it's still just too cruel for me. I don't like. I mean, I know a lot of horror movie is cruel, but just the constant taunting of this girl, and I guess I just don't understand it. Like I never was this way. I didn't experience people being this way towards me in high school. I didn't have that kind of experience. And, I guess I understand, but I look at it more as almost like a precursor to, not a precursor, but kind of like being a little bit ahead of the time, thinking about like the way a school shooting would happen after a kid was taunted to, it's just
to the breaking point.
That it happens to be. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't understand why be so cruel. Like, it just completely just goes over my head. Like, especially even down to, like, it has to be pig's blood. Like, a thing of water, like a bucket of water wouldn't have been bad enough, but they have to cover her in blood. And it's just, I don't know, the reoccurring theme of blood throughout the movie, like, it just, I don't know, it just was not something I guess I would have probably watched on my own. I saw when I was younger, like I remember seeing it around Halloween when I was a kid. While I was like, I think I was trick-or-treating at my aunt's house, go there every year, and my cousin would always have some scary movie on. And I remember watching it then and seeing the opening scene, I said the opening scene, not the very opening scene, but the shower scene, and being so creeped out by Sissy Spacek naked. Like, I had never seen a woman look like that naked, because she's all, like, hunched over, and, she's all kind of weird and saggy a little, which is weird because she's supposed to be a teenager, and she's, 20s, but it's just the way she's standing, and...
Well, and she's very vulnerable. The shower is such a vulnerable place. So your take, if I can sum up what your first impression is, it is that there's no reason you believe this movie is a little too heavy-handed in the cruelty towards its main character.
Right. I mean, I just
at least that it's really hard to watch.
Right. Exactly. It's,
okay.
I'm sure
all right.
accurate in real life, but not the way. It's not something that I would choose to watch.
Right, I understand. I get that, and so and yeah, my first impressions, I completely understand where Jamie's coming from with the notion that there are things that I don't like to watch. I mean, there are movies that are probably really great at depicting, the horror of child abuse. Well, this one has a lot of child abuse, but I mean, you could have younger kids, you could have all kinds of things, and I don't like to watch them even if they are really good commentary or whatever. This movie is very melodramatic. It lays it on so thick with how horrible everybody is to Carrie White that you really are waiting for this girl to just flip out and take basically what amounts to a metaphorical Uzi to her entire school. It just so happens that she doesn't have to because she's Jean Grey, basically. She's Jean Grey in the universe where there is no Professor X. There, and she also has a psychotic mom. Me personally, I'm glad that we have the disagreement because I like this movie. I love how hard it is to watch. It worked for me. I'm also, remember, I'm not the target audience in a sense, or I'm not the target of the movie. Because the movie seems to be, just like last time, The Shining was about how awful dads can be. This movie seems to be about how horrible moms and maybe females in particular can be. I mean, it is a rough movie.
I don't
you
think
don't
it's female. I mean, it is female centric, but I think this. Geez, you put me in the position where I have to defend this, but I think this is more kind of saying the same thing that Buffy says. Being a teenager can be hell.
Being a teenager is really rough. I mean, and you don't get to pick your mom, and you might be stuck with a crazy one. I mean, that's true. But I mean, when you think about it, all the men are complete idiots in this movie. I mean, basically, the women run the world, and I'm not. It may be this way in real life. I know it is in mine, but the women run the world in Carrie. The principal, I have no idea how he got his job. He's a complete idiot. Betty Buckley is running the school. She's also keeping track of who's popular and who's not, and she knows the pecking order. She knows what's going to look weird if so and so asks so and so out. All the women run everything. All the women have essentially male slaves that are I guess called boyfriends who will do whatever they tell them to do. It is just a big, I don't know, Julia, what is the technical word? What's the technical word for a female-run city? Is there a word for that?
Oh, I was going to say,
there's got to be a Greek word.
Not utopia.
Utopia?
Except it's not a utopia.
No. In this case, it's a misogynistic world because there are no women that are really good people.
It's a nightmare vision. Well, Betty Buckley tries real hard.
The gym teacher is a good person. She tries.
Yes. I kept calling her Betty Buckley, and she is Betty Buckley, but she is the gym teacher is played by Broadway star Betty Buckley, and she is like the one vision of, more or less clear-eyed sanity, other than she's a little heavy-handed with Nancy Allen. But maybe that. Yeah.
She's just like slap happy. She's like, Carrie, come on, slap.
Yeah, whack.
Oh.
I mean, it's possible that maybe that's just what 1976 is like.
I don't think so. I think she was pretty awful that way.
Maybe that's the one thing that she can't control.
I went to high school in Texas, and I still didn't see gym teachers slapping.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a pretty misogynistic movie. It acts like even the nice women are bad.
I wanted to smack a lot of people in this movie, and I don't. I can't remember the last time I smacked anybody, but and certainly by the end when people are getting killed left and right, you're like God. You're like, she deserved that. Like whatever happened to that person? I think that she had that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say William Catt didn't quite deserve it. He was just doing what he was told, mind you, but he wasn't in on the blood drenching either.
Okay, so we're going to... Right. No, I agree with you completely. William Catt is, I think, one of the reasons that she goes bonkers. And so we'll get to that in the end. We're going to touch on... Here's what we're going to touch on. We're going to start with... It's going to run like this. We're going to do the shower and the bullying there, Carrie and her mom, and then we're going to look at the girls and Betty Buckley, and then the plan and the prom. And we're going to show, by the way, how this movie is really, when you think about it, this is an extremely fast and efficient movie, or I feel. You might disagree. Okay, so let's start with the shower scene, which is exactly what Jamie was calling on, which is how jarring it is to start with a scene where we see these girls playing volleyball, and Carrie White is this lump of no confidence, poor girl, sitting in the back of the volleyball court, unable to play. And so when it's over with, all the girls, basically, they're very mean to her right from the beginning. You see,
but she lost the game for them.
Yeah. But she's just, Carrie, poor Carrie is completely pathetic. It's weird to me that we see right away that these girls, for some reason, are drawn to sort of plague a girl who's already pathetic. Carrie's already weak. You could ignore her and exclude her. You don't have to be cruel to her, but they are cruel to her. And so Carrie showers by herself, because she has the sense not to hang out with everybody else because they don't like her. And in this opening scene,
by the way, I'd like to know if Jamie had this experience, but I don't remember ever a time in my life of women, let alone teenage girls, just walking around naked with like their towel in their hand, but not wrapped around their bodies. I just have never had that experience.
You mean that doesn't happen?
No,
not in my experience.
Actually, when that happens? It happens when I go to the gym now, and it's always old people. It's always old ladies. That's what does that, not the young ladies.
Yeah, I just feel like teenagers just aren't that confident with their bodies that they're going to walk around naked. I mean, they're all kind of embarrassed about.
Whereas you reach a certain age and you're like, it doesn't matter.
Swimming, and it was always every girl would shower with their bathing suit on.
Exactly.
So,
So you're saying that this is not, this image that we see in Porky's and Carrie and all of this is just completely a Hollywood fantasy.
Well, I think we can definitely say that Porky's is not a realistic. This is probably a slightly more realistic high school movie, and this has telekinesis in it.
I feel like, even with telekinesis, this is a better view of high school than Porky's. Yeah, I feel like my education has been completely tossed. Yeah. Okay.
Porky's college, though, wasn't it?
No, Porky's was in high school. In
high school?
Yes. A bunch of, it's the same thing. There are a bunch of 20-something high schoolers. If I'm wrong, you can point it out to me. But we can go. Somebody's scurrying off to Wikipedia that right now. But okay, so Carrie takes the shower, and she basically has her first period, and she's got to be a senior in high school. So this is late, but that's whatever. Okay, she doesn't know anything about this, and so she thinks that she's bleeding out. She thinks she's in terrible trouble, and so she goes out, and the girls, I guess because they are so grossed out by her unsophistication on this point, they taunt her, they throw sanitary napkins at her, they chant, they do all this horrible stuff, and it takes Betty Buckley, the gym coach, to come in and sort of rescue Carrie. And even Betty Buckley slaps her to bring her around, and then says
It's really like slapping people at Betty Buckley.
Yeah, this is the first time we see Betty Buckley slap somebody, but in this case, Carrie's hysterical. We go into the principal's office, and Betty Buckley says to the principal, look, I can't remember what she said, I wanted to be cruel to her as well, because basically she says that is the natural, she doesn't use these words, but what she says is, this is the natural reaction to somebody who doesn't know how society and life works. The fact that Carrie's so unprepared for society makes her revolting to everybody.
Yeah, what she says is, it's just her period, for God's sake. But what she doesn't know is the backstory that her mom has never told her to expect that.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, well, but they've figured that out. I mean, the principal goes, well, she should know. But so Betty Buckley knows she doesn't know. But the fact that she doesn't know, the fact that Carrie's this unsophisticated makes her gross to everybody, including Betty Buckley, who nevertheless is trying real hard to like Carrie. So I don't know. So afterwards, they send Carrie home, and that is the moment. That is the moment when we know that Betty Buckley is about to punish these girls, and we're going to learn more about the girls. But so Carrie has just been through this terrible, terrible experience. Now, I want to get you guys' reaction because I found this whole scene really hard to watch. It seemed like a really, as a guy, this is all completely, bizarre, unfamiliar territory. I just thought the whole thing, I could not believe that this was what Stephen King chose to start his career with. Although, huzzah.
Apparently he didn't want to actually, finish writing the book. He started it and then threw it out, and his wife dug it out of the trash.
Wow. Wow.
I read that today, actually. I thought that was actually kind of funny.
Okay, so anyway, we follow Carrie home, and she faces her mother, and I don't know, I wasn't even, I've never had the benefit of watching this movie consciously without already knowing that Piper Laurie is the mom and she's the way she is. But we go home and we think surely Carrie will get some solace at her house. But no, because her mother is Piper Laurie, this redheaded, I don't know, on the young side of middle-aged mom who wears a black cape all the time and goes around town selling religious tracts of an extremely, extremely conservative variation of... we are not told what denomination she is. It is a Christian denomination because she talks about Jesus a lot, and she has Catholic saints and crosses and all kinds of stuff. But we are not told at all what denomination Mrs. White is. But she is astonishingly cruel to Carrie. Carrie gets home and she says, "Hey, you should have told me about all of this. I was very embarrassed. I thought I was going to die." She says that, "I thought I was going to die." And Mrs. White starts whacking Carrie in the face with a book until she recites things that she wants Carrie to say. Like, Eve was weak. Eve was weak. Say it. Whack. Eve was weak and Carrie always says the things that her mom tells her to say. And it's this is the second scene in the movie essentially, and it is still incredibly hard to watch. We're half an hour into this movie, and so far the movie is torture.
And let me back up a little bit to back at the school, because we also have the scene, we have the scene in the shower where she gets attacked, and then we have a scene where she's sitting outside of the principal's office while Betty Buckley talks to the principal. And she comes in and she makes the ashtray shake with her mind. And plus, oh, by the way, when she's getting attacked with the tampons and the pads, she blows the light out. So we already start to see her telekinetic powers at work even before. Right. So that adds to that. You're talking about everybody being grossed out by her, but they're also really disturbed that this weird stuff is happening.
But it's such an afterthought. You're so taken in by the drama of what's going on, that the extra, oh, by the way, don't forget this is a supernatural horror, it's almost unnecessary. I know it's necessary because they want us to be aware of it.
It appears to be as gratuitous as the nudity.
All of the horror in this, like the real horror in this, I mean, there's some paranormal stuff, obviously, but this is really more the terror of humanity. Mm-hmm. How cruel people can be to each other. In a way, I mean, this is, this is, a lot of the same themes we see in the James Well Frankenstein films. Is like really that people are the real monsters. And I like those movies better than I like this movie, but
So we've seen two relationships here so far. We've seen Carrie and the girls. We've seen Carrie and her mom. And you're right, it's a lot of cruelty. I'm curious, without asking anybody to reveal anything that is uncomfortable for them, has anybody, I think, and I'm leading to something Jamie was sharing beforehand, that she did not experience high school anywhere nearly as badly as this. That this kind of piling on was not something that Jamie said she experienced.
But I wouldn't even have to go to our personal experience. I mean, you hear in the news about hazing incidents that happen where people end up dead from the way they're treated. You know what I mean? So I think both women and girls and boys.
Teenagers are absolutely this mean, and I got stuff that was this mean in high school. I mean, I wasn't a teenage girl, so it wasn't about the same stuff. But I mean, this is not like the level of meanness that is going on here, and plus the level of kind of stupidity from the school staff is not.
God, yes.
Is not. It's not unrealistic to me. I didn't find it. Jamie. I feel like she. Had a pretty. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like she had a pretty good high school experience. I mean, am I right in?
Yeah, I did. I had a good high school experience. I had a good high school experience. But it was nothing like this. I have to say that. Except for that time that we, rigged. But never mind. But
that time when you killed a pig and rigged up. Yes.
Yeah.
That is a possible thing that maybe if you didn't experience bullying.
This is
go ahead,
to show you how kind of lame my high school was, though. The only real bad prank my senior year was I went to Kingston High School, and there were bushes out front that spelled KHS, and someone went and cut the H down. That was the senior, prank, and that was it's the worst thing.
That was the prank, is they cut down
They cut
a
the
shrub?
H bush. The bush of the H, yeah. So it was just KS. Yeah, that was it. See, told you, not, anything too exciting, not taunting any, telekinetic.
There was no fire.
I think you're lucky.
Yes.
I wish I had an idyllic and wonderful high school experience. High school was a miserable time for me.
I'm really sorry.
I was definitely the weird kid in my school that everybody had. There was definitely weird rumors about me and weird things said about my parents, and like I said, I don't find any of this scenario to be out of other than the telekinesis, which man, that would have made high school easier for me. I don't find it to be out of the degree of reality.
No, I was thinking really junior high for me was more like this. By the time high school was around, I was lucky and I wasn't getting this kind of scene. But, junior high certainly had a lot of the bullying and, people hitting you or gangs of bullies would do things with me like say, don't look back or we're going to come around and taunt you some more. And so you'd get a block down, but then you'd look back and then they'd run up and taunt. So every walk home, everything was always this gauntlet of just horror. That's something I haven't thought about in a really long time. So I guess that's what The Shining. I guess that's what Stephen King can do for us. So yes, we've got Piper Laurie, and she is there's no respite. Carrie has these terrible people dealing with her at home. I mean at school, and then she comes home, and all she has is her single mom, who is just a complete monster in her own. And
we
poor
do
Carrie,
see the mom before she comes home. We see the mom's relationship. You're talking about the different relationships. We also see the mom's relationship with people in the community, and that is that she goes door to door preaching the Lord's word, supposedly, but she gets mad if the person doesn't want to listen, wants to donate money or something else. She has this really hostile attitude about it. So she's clearly not a loving religious person.
No, it's really oddball, and she has seemingly her own. I mean, I don't know how much of her theology is completely invented by herself, or whether the crazy things she believes, such as, for instance, this notion that the original sin is recreated every time a person is born, and therefore if they fail to sin, they will never sexually mature. So that when Carrie begins her menstrual cycle, she believes that it is because Carrie has finally partaken of the original sin and therefore is no longer pure. She is a nut job. I mean, no.
Well, the thing that she says, first the blood, then the boys.
Yes. My
she's
God,
she's
woman.
a fanatic. That's to be sure.
Yeah.
She even said she should have killed her when she was a baby. She's as soon as I should have given you to God when you were born at the end.
Yeah, because the baby was a punishment for sexuality. I mean, she has, Mrs. White has problems, and it's probably true that she should not have this child. I don't know.
Now, she had that one little rant that they actually said they were going to cut from the movie, but then ended up keeping it, where she talks about the time where Carrie's actually conceived, and it's just weird. You're is that supposed to be was that her husband? What she's talking about?
Yes, it's her husband.
They got married. Yeah, she did say that they were married.
Okay, and it's whatever happened to him?
He ran off.
About that. He ran off.
Carrie has a line about how Dad ran off.
Yes, she said. Well, and Carrie actually says he ran off with another woman. And she's Shut up.
And it's possible that Piper Laurie was...
In her mom's mind, she says the devil took her... She keeps talking about how the devil took him away, and that's when Carrie says, like, oh, no, he ran off with another woman. Everybody knows that, Mom.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can hardly blame him except that he didn't take Carrie with him.
Right.
That's really the failing of that guy as a father. You know, you can't really blame him for leaving her because, I mean, my God. But, you know,
how could you subject a child to this woman?
You should have had the sense to take the daughter away. And where is child services in this?
It's a very good point. Yeah.
Where I can only assume they do not exist in this universe because, again, my Lord, jeez.
Yeah, there seems to be no child protective services in the universe of Carrie. Yeah, we never see anything like that. The only extent to which we see any authority figures at all is, I think, the principal, and we see like some emergency
English
services
teacher.
at the end. Yeah,
the English
and the
teacher
teacher
who's a total buffoon.
Yes. Oh God, that guy. Yeah, he was loathsome. Yes, that's another male. And he's an utterly loathsome male.
She goes back to, we were talking about the different, the different relationships. So then she goes back to her home, and her mom has her go into the closet, which is the closet that has the Saint Sebastian, which looks like Jesus, but it's not Jesus. Although I'll tell you that Saint Sebastian is not usually portrayed. Saint Sebastian is the saint that was martyred by with the arrows. But he's not usually portrayed as being crucified like that. So it's actually kind of a combination, I'd say, of Jesus and Saint Sebastian. But
it's not crucified, but what a creepy. Though. He's just his arms are pissed. He's not in the little closet. He's not crucified. His arms are just spread out, but his arms are draped like the mother is in the death scene.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that was the point. But that scene is because to skip to the end. Then when she dies, she's martyred the way that Saint Sebastian was, and she actually has like an orgasm about it. I mean, she's actually feeling the ecstasy of martyrdom from having been killed in exactly the same way. But it's kind of.
I honestly thought that was one of the better, at least visually, that callback of the closet was.
Oh yeah,
that was neat. Like that was one of the few things where I was kind of like, oh, that was kind of cool because most of the movie kind of left me a little cold. But that was
I thought that was
neat.
Cool with the special effects for how she's being like stabbed like so close up with like it's like a potato peeler, all the different kitchen utensils. But it seems that they were on wires, right? And they did that in slow motion, and then the potato peeler went into like a piece of like almost like a cutting board that was strapped under her nightgown in like specific places.
Oh, that's neat.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, how that whole like when they
you could use
that,
like
slow motion.
If you did it slow motion, you could use something like planter's soil. That stuff that you put in the bottom of a planter that's basically this like it's several inches thick and it's basically foam. So yeah, that's brilliant. And we'll get to Carrie's big act out at the end. So Carrie's having problems at home because her mom doesn't understand her. And Betty Buckley meanwhile, back at the school, Betty Buckley has had it up to here with the monsters that are sort of ruling the school. And they include Nancy Allen of RoboCop and Blowout fame, as the just completely bonkers, what is her character's name? I'm just going to call her Nancy Allen because I don't even remember.
Chris. It's Chris.
It's Chris?
Yeah,
okay.
Chris.
And then PJ Souls as her hyena-like sort of buddy. She wears a baseball cap all the time, and she just can't stop giggling and laughing and smirking all the time. I love PJ Souls. I like seeing her here, and you just hate her. You hate her at the moment she's on. And then Amy Irving.
She was cast with that hat on too. The hat that she wears throughout the entire movie, she was cast with that hat on.
That's cool. I heard that she actually that was how she made her part grow was she waxed Carrie with the hat, which is really in the opening scene, and Brian DePalma thought that she was doing really well at being a bully, and so she continued to grow her part. So basically, she's the go-to person to fulfill any order from Chris. And then
there
you have
is one scene with her where she has the red hat on, she has a red shirt, and she's wearing blue coveralls, and the only thing I could think of is, oh, it's Mario reincarnated as a blonde teenage girl.
She's in Stripes too, and she was so great in Stripes. I like PJ Souls a lot, and we don't see her a lot since the 80s, but she's around. And okay, and then Amy Irving the sweet, Amy Irving the lovable, with her mousy brown hair, but her beautiful, beautiful self. I mean, so she's one of the popular girls, but she's allowed to be nice because she has dark hair, and she
has dark hair.
And so Nancy, basically, all these girls are being punished for being cruel to Carrie. Betty Buckley says, basically, you're going to have to do a lot of physical. I don't know. Basically, they're running laps and they're doing push-ups and they're doing all this stuff. Nancy Allen has had it. She's not going to do it anymore. And so she is angry at Carrie, and she's not going to get to go to the prom because she refuses to do the PE. And so she's angry at Carrie, and she plans a practical joke. And the rest of the movie really is about the setup for the practical joke. It's the setup for the prom. The movie doesn't bother hiding from us what's going to happen. It knows that we may even have read the book already. And so there's not you kind of get, you don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but you almost have everything shown to you because it becomes a procedural as the girls plan to do this. Now, as Nancy Allen prepares to go get a bucket of blood and do something with it at the prom, Sue Snell, the sweet Amy Irving, for some reason asks her boyfriend William Catt to take Carrie to the prom. Now, why does she do that? Can somebody please explain this to me?
Well, I mean, at first, the whole point of the film, I think that whole scene is, or that whole subplot is to make you wonder if she's up to something or if she's a bad guy or a good guy. You never know with her if she's a bad guy or a good guy because she's involved with the scene in the shower, so you think she's a bad guy, and then you think she must be up to something and that she must be conspiring, but at the same time, you're kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe not, and especially because the Greatest American Hero doesn't seem to be such a bad guy, so I don't know, it's really a big question mark. But in the end, I think it's that she actually did want to make up for what happened in the shower. I think she kind of feels bad about it.
Yeah, she seems to really mean it. That this is my take on it. So you guys can but it appears to me, especially given how it plays out in the prom, that when she says she just thought it would be kind of neat for her boyfriend to take Carrie to the prom, she seems to really mean that,
How do you think she would feel if she knew that her boyfriend was kissing this girl, though?
That's what I was saying, too. I was like, you think she's okay with, him kissing her? I know if I were a girl if I was this age, I am a girl this age, I would not want to know if I found out my boyfriend was kissing some other girl, I'd be pissed whether or not I set him up on that date with her or not.
Well, she might be naive.
I think that he ended up liking Carrie more than he thought he would.
Sure.
That was my impression. Is I'm just doing this because I've been kind of talked into doing it. But it does seem like he somewhat enjoys her company. I mean, he asked her to stay out later. So I think
he's quite genuine.
Not that makes it okay to kiss. Not that makes it okay to kiss a girl that's not your significant other, but
look, I think that Amy Irving is a little bit naive, but I think she means it when she says it'd be nice for Carrie to have this boy take her to the dance, and so my boyfriend will take her, but I think that William Catt does genuinely, he doesn't expect it, but he likes her a lot, and look, this is high school. I mean, I think that people make mistakes in high school, and who can blame them? I don't know. I hold William Catt blameless. So
William Catt, I think, is one of the few. I mean, his only real failing is that he doesn't seem to make a lot of decisions for himself.
Right. Blameless, but kind of an idiot.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He unlike just about everybody else. We talk a lot about this movie. I've heard Julia say that the movie's misogynistic. I just think this movie is anti-humanity. Really, because there are very few characters in this movie that I would say are good or even passable people. Most of the characters in this movie are monsters. I mean, let's talk about the other more prominent male character, which is John Travolta, who seems like a sociopath. I mean,
okay, yeah, and Joya had some thoughts about this. Joya, do you want to share your thoughts on John Travolta and Nancy Allen?
Is it Nancy Allen, or what's her name? Nancy Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my thought is that Chris, I actually feel like Chris is the most tragic character in the film, other than Carrie, because she obviously is abused as a child in her home, because she's looking, I mean, the way she acts with John Travolta, where she wants him to hit her, like she's clearly like provoking him. And she knows that he'll hit her if she says you stupid shit or whatever, and then she does it. Then she comes on to him. Then she pushes him away. Then she comes on to him again, and it's like the weirdest, Then whenever he hits her, like she gives him a blowjob. I mean, the whole thing, her attitude toward him and toward other people, it's clear that she is an abuse victim herself. And John Travolta, I mean, honestly, he's like, and probably he is too, because he's real quick to hit her. But he's so confused by her behavior. It's like, but he's completely turned on by it. It's a very weird kind of, like you said, psychotic kind of relationship on both of their parts. But I just thought that was a really tragic subplot. It was that story of that girl.
Just, in other words, you feel as though she's the greatest bully, but you feel as though
she comes by it honest.
Yeah, she comes by it honest. That's such a wonderful way of putting it. And good for Stephen King actually in saying, hey, look, we know that this girl's a monster, but she's a monster, and she's also pretty vulnerable herself. And that's, I mean, maybe Drew has a point that the movie is nightmare. What's that?
I totally missed that she was vulnerable. Like, I just took her completely as being just nasty, like rotten to the core from, like, in everything.
I don't mind what happens to her because it's fiction, but I mean, I tend to agree that she probably is acting. I mean, when she turns on Carrie, it's probably because she has a need to punish people who are weaker than her because
John Travolta's character and I don't know, whatever the other chicks, the cheerleader girls, like, I don't know, those are the sort of people that probably would have ended up in the SS during Hitler's regime. Like,
right.
We can give any kind of backstory we want to them, but, like, I have no, like, I just, other than them as seeing them as kind of like a small town version of Sid and Nancy, like, I guess maybe I wasn't looking at this deep enough, but I just thought that they were just bad.
Well, I mean, Freddie,
black hat people, if this was a cowboy movie, they would have black hats on.
PJ's boyfriend is actually very funny. I mean, he has a lot of really funny lines, but he's the sort of go-to guy for fixing the election and killing a pig and doing whatever else is necessary. And he's Sweet Tech from Miami Vice, actually, but it's Michael Talbot. But he's so charming, and also he appears to be about maybe closer to 30 years old than anybody else. And who knows? We never see him in high school, so he may not even be a student, because John Travolta's character, I guess, isn't a student. Is he? No, he's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about
my friend definitely is a student, because they talk. He's in school and they're talking about. He's like, "Oh, I wish I could have helped more with the dance." And the guy's like, "Oh, we could have used you for decoration."
But that's outside.
And he's like, "Well, I want to be voting."
That's a good point. Yeah, and he does go to the dance.
I think he's just the high school. I think he's just another high school bully, because he kind of bullies himself into. Like, I'm sure he is a student. Jamie's right, because I mean they're talking to him like he is a student. I just think he probably doesn't spend too much time in the actual classroom. He's probably just sort of around the school, taking part more of the social structure, but not actually doing much in the way of learning things.
Well,
he doesn't
he's
actually
so funny
kill the
there.
pig, though, Jason. You're wrong about that. John Travolta.
Yeah, John Travolta kills it.
Oh yeah, no, that's
And Chris is
true.
going like, hit it, and she's like egging him on. It's so weird.
Yeah, that is where.
That's why I don't think they're the typical black hat characters, because their relationship is so screwy. It's not like they are.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
Sid Vicious and Nancy Spugman. Without the heroin abuse. I mean, they're like they're not.
Right,
they're
but if
not,
you ever read that book, did you read that book, Sid and Nancy? I mean, that's actually a good example, because they're just so effed up, those people. I just like tragic story.
I just don't have it. Like I guess I'm just a little amazed at the level of empathy for them, because it's just like I'm just so utter, like I'm disgust. You know, that's the thing about this movie, is like, even though I don't really enjoy it, like I can't say it doesn't cause an emotional reaction in me, because I'm just so disgusted by them. Like, I wish this was a Friday the 13th movie, so that Jason would have showed up and killed them sooner.
No, I agree. I had the same. I mean, as I was watching, like I say, I do feel sorry for these guys, but I only feel sorry for the children they were. I don't have a problem with Chris rolling over several times in her car. I'm
not saying that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have, that they didn't have something coming. I'm saying that there's more, that the characters are interesting. And I think this is what I like about Stephen King's writing, is that the characters are always deeper. Like, you can always see what he's coming from in his personal experience with people, that these are people that he probably knew who, like I said, were abuse victims, and so therefore they pass it on to other people. Just like I don't feel sorry for, I'm not saying I feel sorry for like a pedophile who gets arrested and people beat the crap out of him, even if he was abused as a child. Like you said, you feel bad for the child he was, but not for the grown-up. I get that. But I'm just saying it is a tragic thing that they've come to this, because if they were just bad guys that didn't ever, like, beat up on each other and weren't mean to each other, but they were just kind of always had their arms around each other and they were always like, hey, what are we going to do next? Then it would be easy to kind of go, okay, you're just bad, period. But when the way they treat each other and the way they are, it just makes me think that they have more substance to the characters than
and I think you're probably right. I will say this, though, as a Stephen King piece, this is got the least amount of Stephen King tropes that we've out of all the movies that we've done.
Marvel. How can you he hadn't even established a style yet.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But like when I think of it is interesting to see this as sort of the prototype, because like if you look at like The Shining and Salem's Lot, which we did prior to this, those have a lot of kind of similar
That's
themes.
True. They tend to be about adults.
This is very different from those.
All the Stephen King, we talked about the tropes of the Stephen King, that they tend to be about adults. They tend to take place in a small town, and they tend to be about writers. There are none of those characters who are the normal, like, Stephen King stand-in here. None. There's not even like a sort of lovable, put-upon English teacher to be the Stephen King stand-in. This is all taking place in the universe of these young women and the men that they more or less control. So you're right. It's a sort of force of imagination. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
They said that he actually, the reason why he wrote this book was he had heard of a 13-year-old girl with the powers, the telekinetic powers, and they had, their scientists were researching and documenting it, and the only thing that he'd come up with that why her powers were so strong was because she was right at puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And and they said it apparently, according to the study, her powers subsided after she'd actually gone through puberty. But he had started imagining and talking about it with his wife, and about what that would be like. You're coming of age to begin with. Imagine having like these crazy powers. But he actually he said the characters were actually based on these two girls that he had actually gone to high school with. One was a loner whose mother was a religious, well, not a fanatic, but they were very, very religious, and she was very poor and only had one outfit that she would wear to school every day. And, he saw the inside of their house, and they had this huge crucifix, like, over the dinner table, and he said that stuck with him. And, I guess later, like the next year after summer had gone by, the girl came back to school totally transformed. She looked like a different person. She wore a different outfit. And apparently, like a year or so after that, she committed suicide. And then the other girl was actually a girl with epilepsy. And so that was how, and everyone kind of stayed away from her because of the way that she was, it was just different. They didn't know how to, they kind of handled her with kid gloves, I guess, but were also very scared of her as well.
Sure, because there's all that stuff to deal with, and they don't want to deal with it, because when you're a kid, you certainly don't want to. You don't want to deal with anybody else's stuff. at all.
But both of these girls ended up, I guess she had an epileptic fit, and she ended up dying alone in an apartment she was renting in their hometown after she'd graduated high school, when she was relatively young. So I thought it was kind of interesting that he based this character of Carrie on these two women who both of them die. So it's like he knew while writing the story that he was going to, kill her off by the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you guys don't, you talk about not feeling sorry for Nancy Allen. Do you feel sorry for Carrie? That when do you feel like,
yes,
do you feel sorry for her?
Really
Do you feel like she's a bad guy because she goes off and murders a bunch of people who didn't really do anything?
Absolutely do. I feel bad for her.
I feel bad for her, but at the same point, I don't think it was right what she did either. I mean, with the whole gym teacher thing, was she, when they show the prom scene and everybody's looking, or Carrie's looking into the crowd at everybody, and they have that weird, hexagonal image, and everybody's kind of, in each one little hexagon, and they're swirling around and she's watching everyone laughing at her, and you wonder, you're like, is she actually watching them laughing at her, or is she imagining everyone?
Yeah, is this real? Is their reaction?
She's definitely imagining it, because you see what's actually going on, and then you see what she sees, and it's two different things.
Right, and that's what I thought, but according to Brian DePalma, the gym teacher does laugh.
Well,
and
I
thought that was out of character. Why would she laugh?
But
okay,
I don't think she does. I don't think
let's
the gym
set
teacher
up
laughs.
the scene before we go to the question of the laughter.
Well,
I
would like to say something to answer Julia's question, and more thoroughly. Yes, I feel bad for Carrie, and yes, I empathize the most with Carrie because, again, I was more like Carrie. Obviously, Carrie's a girl. She has a lot of experiences unique to that.
Drew got his first period when he was a senior, too.
Yes, and I also was genetic. But, I relate to that because that was more like my high school experience. I mean, I was a social outcast. Do I think it's okay to actually go out and kill your senior class? No, but certainly, revenge fantasies, occurred through my darkly teenaged mind, just how they go through a lot of kids' minds. The difference being is I didn't act on them, and in this case, of course, I did. I don't have mutant powers to enact them with, but I have a lot of empathy for Carrie, and it's hard. I guess it's easier for me to empathize with the person being. You know what? I will say this. I was bullied a lot physically, and after a while I got to the point where I would push back physically, and that's not the same as blowing up the high school prom with my telekinetic powers, but a fist to the face and learning to enjoy that power of seeing someone cower from you when you get physically intimidating is enthralling. So I do even understand that aspect of Carrie. But it's still not, it's not right, and she kind of deserves her fate at the end, even though it is self-inflicted. But,
she's just been damned the entire, I feel like from the moment of inception of the thought of the idea of Carrie, Stephen King damned her.
It just seems like the place where the story should go. When I've also read the story of the girl one of the girls that he talked about, where what was very interesting was the damage that was done to her. The girl that comes back with nice new clothes, how because she had tried to break out of her role, everybody punished her worse. In other words, it was very important to get her back into the bullied role that she was supposed to be in. So even though she was wearing new clothes, they broke her down very quickly. So if he chooses to kill her, if Stephen King chooses to have Carrie die, it's because he believes that the universe always punishes Carrie White. Or at least he does in this book. It's not always the case in all of these books. Sometimes his books have happy endings, So I believe it's possible that he could have written this 15 years later and had a totally different way for it to turn out. You never can tell. Okay, let's get to the prom, because the prom is the most important thing, and we can't run too long. Carrie goes to the prom with William Catt. It goes great. he's charming. They're having a wonderful time. PJ Soles on Nancy Allen's say-so has rigged the election so that Carrie and William Catt will become the king and queen of the prom. And Carrie's wearing a very pretty dress that she made herself, so they become king and queen, and they go up there. And now begins this Brian DePalma tour de force where everything that's been worked on in the last, hour comes to pass. And I the tension in this scene as Amy Irving Amy Irving is seeing her plan come to pass, which is that Carrie is having a wonderful time because Amy Irving sneaks in to watch. And Amy Irving, standing for us, slowly works out, hey, there's a bucket of blood, it's tied to the rope, it's maybe going to fall very soon. And I mean, what did you guys think of the Brian DePalma tricks in this particular scene?
Well, it's definitely suspenseful in kind of an Alfred Hitchcock kind of way, but it is I like Jamie. I sort of feel like so it is a little kind of hard to see when the axe finally falls, or in this case the bucket finally falls, who really was mocking Carrie yet again, and who's really blameless. That's a little sloppy in my opinion.
The bucket falls. Yeah, I mean, okay. Betty Buckley sees that Amy Irving is there, and Amy Irving has noticed something going on, and Betty Buckley kicks Amy Irving out, and that is the moment when Nancy Allen pulls the rope and the bucket falls. The bucket falls, and it brings everybody to silence. And Brian DePalma has stretched this whole moment to a breaking point. He has stretched it on with the clapping and the rope and the cuts and all of this until you can't stand anymore, and then finally they pull it and the blood falls, and everybody goes silent because it's shocking. And then Carrie is watching, and it's all silent. You can't hear anything but the sound of the bucket.
The bucket and the rope and the dripping. It's amazing.
Right.
I actually loved, that was probably one of my favorite scenes, because it's just that sound. You just hear drip, 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 and then you hear thunk
William Catt, right, and that's amazing. And William Catt says, "What the hell?" I mean, he looks up and he elaborately mouths it so that we know that there's no sound. I mean, DePalma knows there's no sound, so we have to be able to read William Catt's lips. And he goes, "What the hell?" And then the bucket falls and smacks William Catt on the head, and he's down. Bam. And then everybody has started, in Carrie's mind, laughing. And so Jamie points out, well, DePalma says that they really are laughing. So are they laughing? Is this just sloppiness? Are we not meant to really know what's going on?
I think they are laughing. The part that I'm specific about, the Betty Buckley character. She, the whole movie, she's Carrie's only ally, and then except for Amy Irving, but and then suddenly she's at the gym, and she's 1 second she's trying to help Tommy, who's just been knocked out by the bucket, and the next minute she's out with the English teacher laughing at Carrie.
I don't think she's laughed. I really don't. I think Carrie just
I didn't think
that.
she would laugh either, but that's why when I was watching the special features, I was shocked when Brian DePalma said that she laughed. So everybody was guilty, and that's why I think he killed her off. Because in the book, she doesn't die. She's left standing at the end, but she does resign as the gym coach. But I just thought that was really strange, And
so if that's the case, and we have to take the director seriously, although we don't have to take him necessarily as sacrosanct because it's a long time ago and he could be wrong. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. But if he says that she laughs, then she laughs. Either way, Carrie certainly feels like she laughs, and she's had it. That's what I love here is her sudden feeling like. You all, it's wonderful. It's wonderful seeing Carrie finally just snap, but she doesn't snap in. It's like she basically goes cold and then starts to kill everybody. She closes all the doors. And then she turns up the lamps and everybody starts kind of running, and then she puts the hose on them all, and then she sets an electrical fire.
Did you see?
Apparently, PJ's eardrum got broken in that
That's what I was
scene.
about to say. Did you read with her? That her eardrum got busted?
Tell me about this.
She couldn't hear for like 6 months because it perforated her eardrum whenever the hose.
Because she got hit by a fire.
The water. The water in her ear. With that scene.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
I mean,
Brian DePalma wanted her to be hit it with the fire hose and have it like so that it was like kept hitting her in the face, and that he wanted her face like each side, you know, as she was turning her head left to right, like oh water, like she was being slapped in the face with water. But the one time that she turned her head, the hose got her right in the ear and
that's awful.
broke her eardrum. Yeah.
So
she was in a lot of pain during that scene. But I have to say, backing up before all that, I actually really thought that one of the more interesting shots was when she was dancing with William Catt and the camera. And they're on a platform that's spinning in one direction, and the camera is on like a track that's spinning in the other direction, and it's such a dizzying effect. It actually makes
so what does that remind you of? If you had
Vertigo?
to, well, I suppose, but I was going to say it reminds me of Saturday Night Fever, which comes out after this. It's after this, right? I'm cheating now. I'm going to look. Saturday Night Fever comes out in '77.
No, it's definitely after because I mean John Travolta is
one of his first movies.
Not John Travolta yet.
Comes out the next year. I mean, Saturday Night Fever is still a year away, and John Travolta, who is he right now? He's Vinnie Barbarino on Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah, and he plays Vinnie Barbarino in this movie too, by the way.
Yes.
He was also, I think he was also the boy in the plastic bubble.
Oh my God!
Favorite made-for-TV movie, and you know, just.
That's a great reach there. That was whose favorite made-for-TV movie?
I just said my 19th favorite made-for-TV movie.
I remember The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. That and Dead Man's Curve, which was the untold story of Jan and Dean. Yeah. The 70s was a good time for really, really bad TV movies. But now I got to go.
Back, but I wanted to mention that one scene itself because I thought it was really cool. But and just kind of like just jarring. And that's the thing. It's the whole movie, the soundtrack of the film, I think is set out to be jarring, but it's kind of annoying too because I don't like the music. But you know, they'll have this sweet kind of syrupy 70s music, and then they'll have like the Psycho 4-note, you know, violin.
It's such a rip-off of Psycho, isn't it?
No, it's not a rip-off. It's an homage. It's actually attributed to Psycho. I mean, they attribute it, and they also used the Bates. The name of the high school is the Bates High School as an homage to Psycho as well.
Wow, no kidding. I think I had not noticed that the high school is called Bates, and so rip-off or homage, it's one or the other, and maybe both. And not the first time that DePalma has done that too, because he's a big Hitchcock freak, you know, and he's doing things. DePalma loved to invent new suspense things the same way that Hitchcock did. You know, this is a movie where we get.
Except he's not as good as Hitchcock.
No, he's not as good as Hitchcock. But I mean, you know, but I like DePalma's pacing sometimes better than Hitchcock.
I'm not a fan.
You're not going to go that far.
He's made one movie that I like.
The Untouchables, maybe?
Oh wait, okay, that's two. The Untouchables and Phantom of Paradise.
Phantom of the Paradise. Man, that's an excellent film. That is a truly wonderful film. And if we ever do a Phantom of the Opera retrospective, I think we'll have to do Phantom of the Paradise because that would rock. And it would be cool to both talk about that movie and Herbert Lom. You know, so okay. So anyway, Carrie goes ballistic. She goes completely bonkers. She sets fire to the gym, and she walks out like the very first cool guy who doesn't look at explosions. She just like walks out, and the place is going bonkers and driving away. But towards her anyway, in her path are Nancy Allen and John Travolta.
Well, they're definitely intending to run over her. I mean, that's
they intend to run over her, but she has perfect ESP. She turns around, sees them coming towards her, and she flips their car several times and causes it to explode. Wonderful. You're like, yes, those two. Oh, and Betty Buckley gets
she gets halved.
Yes, she gets bisected by this four-top table, this gym table that just swings down.
Basketball.
Is that what it was?
The backboard of the basketball.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to be so stupid. I thought that was a table, but you're totally right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, anyway, she's bisected by that thing. And
the principal and the teacher get electrocuted at the same time.
yes.
But that's because they were fighting over the microphone.
Technically, she doesn't set fire to the gym. She sprays the water hose and that goes up in the air, and it blows out a light, and the light comes down, electrocuting them and starting a fire.
She causes an electrical fire. Yes. No, absolutely. I'm with you. She gets home. She walks home. In the book, she sort of continues to go on this rampage where she destroys
a roaring
the town.
rampage of revenge.
Right. She is, like I said, she's like a little 5'2" Godzilla. She just rampages through the town, destroying gas stations and stuff. But
if that had been in the movie, had been in this movie, maybe I would like it better. Like this is like the entire thing is built up to this one. And, you know, that scene is pretty cool. I mean, it's iconic for a reason. I'm not going to say it's not. But that's it. I mean, really, I've put up with all of these jerkwads for the length of a movie. That is not enough to justify me sitting through that. Like, I want the 5'7" Godzilla treatment. You know, I know they didn't have the technology to do that at that time. You know, like,
or the money.
Really,
no doubt,
or the money. But you know, maybe that's so. In that respect, I am okay with this being remade because I feel like they can do this better.
You should totally check out the trailer for the new one. But
so let's go to the end though before we continue to.
Get to the home. She goes to her house. She goes, "Mama, they were so mean to me. You're totally right. Give me a hug." But
first, she takes a bath and washes off all the blood in the bath. And that was creepy because of the red. I'm like, to me, like Jason goes, "Does she not have a shower?" I don't think they have a shower. But I was like, "Aren't you going to drain that water and then start over?"
I was like, you know, she couldn't be running the water and putting the clean water on her face. She's like using the actual dirty bath water.
Yeah,
dirty bath water to wash her face. Like,
pretty good.
Sanitary, Carrie.
Carrie has a lot to learn about cleanliness. It's true.
But so the mom is like hiding behind the closet door.
And sanitary napkins, apparently.
Yes.
The mom is hiding behind the bathroom door as she walks by, and you just catch a glimpse of the mom. It's really creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yes. So mom has already determined that Carrie's a witch and deserves to be killed. And so when Carrie goes to her for comfort, the mom betrays her. This is the last straw for, well, you'd be surprised how many last straws Carrie has, but this was the really, really last straw for Carrie. And so she sacrifices her mother to God, giving her the ecstatic death of Saint Sebastian by stabbing her repeatedly with various poking instruments.
Potato peelers and whatnot.
Potato peelers and knives and whatever else she can stab her mom with, a big file, and then the house plunges in on itself and catches fire. And I think that's Carrie kind of committing suicide just in despair over her life. But she sure seems like I don't know. It is odd that the house just starts to fall in on itself, and it's unclear whether she's bringing it down on herself or not. How did you guys read this?
I think Carrie is committing suicide. I mean, that is my feel. I mean, yes, I guess you could do the religious thought of it is that God is punishing this
but that doesn't scan.
Creature.
I mean,
it doesn't.
That just seems unlikely.
She was pushed.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, no matter what you can say, like, yes, it was what she did was wrong, but she really was, you know, pushed. And
and now she's had it.
And it was really the only, you know, that scene was one of the things that I like, because I like the fact that she get, you know, her mom, and, you know, they die in the closet, which is where her mom would punish her. And I think you know, it's a nice little ending, but, you know, again, there should have been so much more before that.
So, all right. So we should definitely wrap up, and I'd love to get your final thoughts. And where did we start? We started with final thoughts, and then we'll do endorsements. And I love the fact that there are these differing feelings on this movie. So Julia, some quick, and everybody will try to keep them down to it because we've gone way long. Final thoughts on Carrie.
Yeah, my final thoughts are that Stephen King has some serious issues with his mother, with his people he went to school with, with his own, like, I don't know, self-esteem. I mean, it seems like every one of these movies he's working through some serious issues, and it's so much fun for somebody like me who loves to psychoanalyze everyone to kind of pull it apart. But so, it's interesting. It's, like I said, it's not as good as some of the others, but it was definitely worth checking out if you haven't already.
So, Drew, have you changed your opinion at all of Carrie now that you've had a chance?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to talk about here, obviously, but I don't think this movie is. Maybe, like, I haven't read the book. I've never have, and, maybe, so I would get more enjoyment out of that. But, like, I prefer other treatments on the same subject matter, of the life of a sort of a bullied teen. And this movie just kind of leaves me cold. I don't find it to be a very enjoyable, experience. It's like, which is strange because this is an iconic film, and there's a few, I absolutely understand why this movie made Sissy Spacek kind of the star, because I do think she is excellent in it. But I would just. I mean, after we watched this, we started watching Pumpkinhead, which to me is a much better movie, and it's probably not as deep, but it's definitely more satisfying. And there's just other things I would rather spend my time doing than watching this movie. And I can't not tell people to see it because, again, this is a very, very famous movie, but it just doesn't do it for me.
All right. I'm really glad. I mean, because although I don't necessarily agree, because I like this movie, I think it's good that occasionally, you have to be willing to say this movie's a classic, but I don't really. It's not working for me. I'm not responding to it. Jamie, how'd you wind up with Carrie?
Well, it's funny because, like I said, I saw it when I was a kid, and I haven't seen it since then. And to watch it in two different, such different stages of my life, like I said, I was probably, just pubescent age when I saw it the first time. And I think about, like, would I don't have any kids, but would I let, like, my future children watch this movie at that age? I don't think so, actually. Like, I feel like it's pretty graphic in that sense, and, but at the same point, it's almost like I don't want to say a learning experience, like you could show somebody this, and, I would hope that whoever was watching it would feel that they weren't having I said that wrong, that they would associate more with, like, the Carrie attitude while she's, in the beginning when she's getting harassed and, everybody, and, that they do realize that how cruel kids can be, and that they're just as disgusted as this as I am. That it's more a character study on your own if you're, like, ha ha ha, she's got her period, or if, they're really just as disturbed by people being so cruel. But I mean, it's not. I don't think it's as bad a movie that Drew seems to think it is. Like I said again, it just makes me feel very disturbed, and if
I
that's
don't
what
actually
Stephen
think
King,
it's a bad movie. It just doesn't click with me.
Okay, well, I'd be disturbed if it did click with me.
Understood.
So, but I guess that's my. Not my kind of ambiguous way of saying.
So does that mean? So did I hear you right that if you did have some teenagers in your life, you might suggest you guys should watch Carrie, or you would not suggest that they watch Carrie?
Depending on the age of that teen. If it was like a just after puberty teen, like 13, like 12, 13, 14 maybe, no. If it was like 16, 17, 18, then yes.
Sure. No, I can dig that, and I think this is a great movie to watch probably in upper high school. Absolutely, I think that may be one of the. I know it sounds crazy, but that might be one of the reasons to remake movies like this is because teens want to see teens their own age. But I think this is a good story. So we didn't talk really about Sissy Spacek, but the funny thing is she is such a good performer and she's really wonderful here, and so.
I think we should mention the thing about we didn't mention the very last shot in the movie where Amy Irving
jumped.
Huh?
That's the only scene in the whole movie that made me jump. I literally jumped.
Yes.
Yeah, and Amy Irving has a dream that she's standing in front of the cross-shaped for sale sign on the property that Carrie's house is on, and it's got Carrie White burns in hell with an arrow pointing down, and she's standing there with these flowers, and she's kind of looking forlorn, and all of a sudden this hand, which is actually Sissy Spacek's hand, pops out of the soil and grabs her leg, and you just jump like 6 feet up in the air. And then she wakes up and she's just screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming. It's just so horrible. But that was actually Sissy Spacek was such a method actor that she wanted to do every single thing regardless, and like some of the things, many, many times, regardless of how horrifying they might be, including that being buried.
Yeah, including being buried. It is. Yeah, so she turns in a really wonderful performance, and I liked all the performances that Brian DePalma gets out of his actors here. I think when you consider that this is not a very big budget movie, there are no effects, none in this movie that you don't find believable. I mean, it helps that there's nothing that has to happen that would strain credulity. There are no smoke monsters, there's no devil's head that has to appear in the mirror, anything like that. So, all the effects that he does are all outstanding. I mean, and I really like it. I think, it's so amazing to me that the first Stephen King adaptation manages to be adapted by one of our great, suspense directors, so that you get this really great little movie. So I recommend it. So let's go straight around and we'll go backwards to endorsements. I just want to endorse one thing this week, and that's Simply Scripts. This is a really neat site. I don't know if you guys ever look for scripts, if you want to read the screenplays of different movies, but I totally recommend them because basically whenever I'm looking for a film, and I want to read what the script reads like, that is the first place that I would look. For instance, I just went there right now, and I can find the screenplay to Carrie, in fact, and read it. So I recommend simplyscripts.com. That's the only thing I can think of to call out. So going backwards, Joya, endorsements?
Well, that's not backwards because I was first, but okay.
Oh, you were first?
Yeah.
Well, who went right before me? It was Jamie. I'm sorry. Jamie, endorsements.
Okay. Well, dessert first. My Dreams and Cakes is coming out in the next 2 weeks, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I'd like to endorse one of my good friends' band. He just actually had open heart surgery and still in the hospital. They're visiting him earlier today. Mr. Dylan Cavalier of Ruby D and the Snake Handlers. He's an amazing bassist, and actually the rest of the band is also great too in their own right. They were up for a Grammy earlier this year for Best Roots Rock Band, but if you haven't checked them out, you really should. They're great, and I know they have a new album coming out soon too. So that's my endorsement.
Outstanding. Okay. Drew, any endorsements for us? Drew, are you there?
Unmute him. You need to unmute him, he said.
Okay, let me see if Drew's on mute.
Never mind. Here, Drew.
Oh, how did you get muted?
You lost me, and then I dialed back in.
Oh, no. How awful. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Drew.
So my endorsements for the week, first off, again, I want to plug Tony and myself and Tony, our other, who's normally our regular cast member, but is off hanging out with Wilford Brimley tonight. So my lovely wife is with us, but
thank you, Jamie, for doing that for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Still in for the diabetes. But we have a signing actually on Halloween at Tribe Comics and Games here in Austin. So if you've been listening to us ramble on about horror films for the past 40 or so episodes, please come by and see the comics that we write and perhaps purchase these comics from us and have them autograph them for you, because we would love to do that and see your smiling faces. Since we are talking about my comic, I also have to plug my comics that are available. You can order the paperbacks or digital download comics from Indie Planet and Indie Planet Digital, And there is a sale until the end of the month. Well, not even a sale. You can get Halloween Man versus the Invisible Man for free right now, so please go check those out.
I really do recommend that. That's a good book. Halloween Man versus Invisible Man is very good. Anyway, continue.
With an intro by Jason, by the way.
I had forgotten that I wrote the intro, but yes.
You did. But my non-self-serving endorsement this week is for the excellent On the Road with the Ramones by Monty Melnick, who is the Ramones road manager from the 1970s all the way to the 1990s. And this is probably the most all-encompassing history of the band. Starting out from their humble beginnings in the 1970s, where they used to actually get into fistfights with each other on stage, to the point in the 1980s where supposedly they were the tightest band in the entire planet. So it's interesting to actually see that progression, not just told by music journalists or anything, but it's people. It's all done as interviews with people that were around the band, and it's a fascinating read. So if you are a music fan or punk rock fan, I would highly recommend this book.
Outstanding. And Julia, so that now we finally come around to you. I backwards and forwards, I'd completely lost track. So
okay,
please.
You must have gotten dizzy from the spinning camera scene in
yes.
Carrie. I would say that I encourage everyone to, once again, to this Halloween time, watch the It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because I love that. And I want to encourage everyone to vote, but not just vote for the president, but go find out about your local representatives and folks that are running in local elections, and get informed and go out and vote, because it makes a difference. We're in early voting now.
Okay, well, and those of you listening, please like us on iTunes and like us on Facebook and tell your friends about us. And come on down to the Facebook page, which is where we spend most of our time with the Castle Dracula podcast. Ask us questions and make recommendations, especially because we will soon be wrapping up the Stephen King retrospective, and we got to figure out what our next set is. Heaven only knows. I'm sure it'll be fun, but I have no idea what it is. I'm pretty sure that next week, though, we're coming back. Is next week Silver Bullet?
Silver Bullet! Yay!
So next week we get to figure out if it makes any sense for Drew to dislike Carrie and really, really love Silver Bullet. So we will come back. I've never seen Silver Bullet, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And that is not the end.
You see, my friend. All right.
All right. I will be very good to the film, no doubt. And even that's not the end, because there will be one more. There's still going to be Creepshow after that. So this is going to be an outstanding wrap up. Perfect Halloween season. Okay, guys, thank you very much. And we can't wait to see you next week. And we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
Night.